Hello, everyone. I'm Phyllis, Dickerson, CEO of the African American Mayors Association, and I'm joined with my co-host, Mayor Van Johnson, the great mayor of Savannah, Georgia. Welcome, Van.
Thank you so much. An honor to be here as we continue to break it down and make it real.
So today we have our special guest, Mayor Tishaura Jones from the great city of St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you for joining us today, Mayor Jones.
Thank you for having me. It's great to see you.
So I have to admit, before we get started, I have so Mayor Jones is like my mayor crush. History making in the great city of St. Louis is always kind of on the cutting edge of everything. So I am a bit biased when it comes to her.
Right. I can see you going already. It's going to be a great conversation. So, Mayor Jones, just to warm it up a little bit, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career track. How did you get to be mayor?
So again, thank you for having me. It's great to see and be in conversation with both of you. I actually didn't want to be in politics. This was a career that chose me. I feel like this was my calling. I've been state representative, treasurer for the city of St. Louis, and now mayor. So I have a career spanning over about 20 years in Missouri politics.
Wow. I didn't think she was that old to even have a career.
No, but she's been in the game for a long time. And so when you look at the length and breadth, she's clearly probably one of the most prepared individuals that's ever served in that seat.
Wow. So we know you have significantly decreased homicide rates in the city of St. Louis. Tell us that process, because a lot of mayors are struggling with crime and public safety right now. But tell us that process that you got to how you got to here.
Yeah, so decreasing crime in the city of St. Louis has been our number one mission. But we realized that it's an all hands on deck approach. Since I took office in 2021, homicides have decreased by 40% under my watch. And we do that in a myriad of ways. One of the first things I did was start an Office of Violence Prevention, like many other cities have across the country. We studied other offices across the country. Newark, New Jersey, for example, was one where we took a lot of things that they're already implementing, and also making a robust investment in our kids. Our rec centers stay open late nights on the weekends. We have structured programming for them, like parties and things that they want to do. And we also embed social workers in those parties to try to identify their needs. We also hired our first chief from outside of the city in our entire 260 plus year history. Chief Robert Tracy comes to us from Wilmington, Delaware, by way of the Bronx, as well as Chicago, and has a whole host of experience decreasing crime by double-digit numbers in the cities that he's worked in, using data to guide his decision-making. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. We also have done all of this while we were severely understaffed in our police department. Just like every police department around the country, we also have a staffing shortage, but we have chosen to work smarter and not harder and deploy the resources based on where the data is telling us they need to be deployed, and also making sure that we're deploying the right resource to the right cause. So we've added alternative methods of deployment. Our Cops and Clinicians program, which deploys an officer with a behavioral health professional, as well as having 911 diversion methods within our dispatch center, so people can talk to behavioral health professionals in real time and follow up when they are having crises. So it's a myriad of things, but they're all working in tandem, and they all know about each other, so they're able to refer each other to services when they encounter someone in need.
Wow. Well, we know, Mayor, that public safety is when people are safe, but they also feel safe. And so although I'm sure crime is down significantly here, and the statistics say that they're down across the country, people will still feel that they're not safe. And I wanted to know, what did you think about the disconnect when people statistically are safer, but then they don't feel safe?
Well, part of that is the narrative that we show through the media. When you turn on the news, and what's at the top of every news broadcast, the top 5 minutes are related to crime. But what if we changed the game and we started the top 5 stories being community related stories or good stories? So we have to push back on the media and how they report what's going on in the city, because if the first 5 stories are about crime, I'm usually tuned out and going on to something else. I don't want to watch that.
Right.
So we have to push back on our local media and national media to tell a different story. Recently, in our own police department, not only have we been telling the story when we encounter crime, but we tell the story when we solve it. Our solve rate right now in our department is upwards of 70%, and the national average is somewhere around 60.
Let's see.
I mean, sometimes it's been as high as 75%. But that happens at the speed of trust and community building and making sure that our officers are seen in community, at community meetings, interacting with people who have experienced crime, and then also through our alternative methods, having behavioral health professionals, people who are trained to deal with people in their trauma. And if they're starting to trust us more, they'll also give us the information we need to solve crimes and follow up.
So, Mayor Jones, you talked about some of the PIT services that you offer in your city, but you also talked about the reduction of staff within the police department. That's across the board. It's not just St. Louis, it's every city. So what type of recruitment methods do you use in your recruitment process for your PD?
We just launched a recruitment program in conjunction with our police foundation. We have a foundation that raises money privately to undergird our police department with things that they can't afford, or when the budget runs out. And they, in partnership with them, we launched back in May a huge social media and billboard campaign about recruiting people to work for the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. And as a result of the first few months, we have over 124 applicants for our police academy, which is the most we've had in a really long time. And we've had 24 members of the police force return to the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department as a result of this campaign, as well as historic raises that they received last year.
Wow. Mayor, I know in Savannah it gets hot, but I know in St. Louis it gets hot too. And it's just something about the hot weather. It just seems like, I dread when summer comes because I know what that means for our crime numbers. I know you do predictive policing. What can you share about what you do in preparation for those hot days in St. Louis?
So, for example, July 4th was a really busy and violent weekend for us. And we can track as much as we can on social media. We have an intelligence department that goes through social media posts to see where people are planning on being. We've been able to interrupt a lot of people drag racing through our streets as a result of that. But sometimes, there are things that happen, and in the moment, it catches us a little bit off guard. And 4th of July was one of the weekends where hundreds or dozens of youth came downtown to start shooting off fireworks, and then some had guns and started shooting each other. We are thankful that no one died, and our prayers go out to those who were injured in that incident. But that weekend, everybody was on overtime. No vacation was granted. Everybody was staffed. So we had plainclothes officers as well as officers in uniform with a presence downtown, because that's unfortunately where people like to go to cause havoc. But one of the things that we did was we made sure that that we were able to round everybody up really quickly and charge those who were involved. And we found that most of the people who we charged didn't even live in the city. They came from, the suburbs and points west and east of the city. So we also recently started a campaign. We had to go old school and start pushing out social media messages saying, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? And so those messages started within the last weekend. Last weekend wasn't as bad as 4th of July, obviously, but sometimes we have to go pull those old school methods in order to get parents more involved. Because I don't know about you, but I know where my son is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And he actually was downtown with those young people, and he saw stuff starting to go awry, and he had the foresight to be like, you know what, let me leave before his stuff pops off, and let me go back to my friend's house and chill out there. So, I'm thankful that he's a smart kid. But also I knew that he was downtown, but I knew that he also was smart enough to leave before things got really bad.
So do you guys have that talk at home? Like, listen, this is what you do when such and such happens. I remember President Clinton and Hillary used to have these talks with Chelsea and say, if somebody says this, what do you do? What do you say? What's your action? So do you guys have those talks at the kitchen table?
Oh yes, and I'll tell your listeners and your viewers something really surprising happened when I became mayor. Because we were having a conversation about all of the things that a mayor is responsible for, police, fire, streets, traffic, all of that. And when he heard me talk about the police, he said, well, that means I'll be safe. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because my son shouldn't have to think that his mother has to become mayor in order for him to feel safe when it comes to interactions with police. But I do also stress to him that everybody doesn't know who you are. They know who I am, but they don't know who you are. So you still have to remain vigilant. You still have to, keep both hands on the wheel. I still have to talk with him, even though his mother is the mayor.
Mayor, you've been respected highly among us AAMA mayors for your ability to be always 100% transparent. And I've noticed that even in your community, talking to parents and talking to businesses and about the shared responsibility for public safety. I know you get blamed for everything, but you've also been very clear in making sure that people recognize their responsibility. And I want you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, we make sure that we have conversations with our businesses that are considering leaving downtown. We have a great relationship with our regional chamber and have monthly meetings with the leadership there. So we're oftentimes in sync when it comes to things going on in our city or things that we are applying for, grants that we're applying for nationally. And we have to be, transparent and have to be open. I'm even open on little things like my health and how that affects me and how me talking about my health may prompt someone to also look at themselves internally. During my recent State of the City, I talked about how a couple of years ago, I was pre-diabetic and had to take the necessary changes to get healthy and to lose weight and start working out and eating right, and compared that to the health of our city and how we should take care of our city in the same way as we take care of our bodies. So we just have to, keep having those conversations and be vulnerable at times in order to get our point across.
So you brought up earlier, like some of the partners you have in this PIT work. I know you partner with like people like Cities United and people like organizations like that. And so talk a little bit about the partners you use in this crime prevention work and intervention work, because a lot of our listeners don't know about these types of partners that are available to them. Right.
The Center for Policing Equity has been a great partner for us in getting some real baseline data about the types of calls that come into our 911 centers. And that's when we made the decision to actually embed behavioral health professionals within our 911 call center, because we found out that up to 50% of calls can be answered by someone other than police or fire or EMS. The National League of Cities has a track for mayors that are dealing with crime. And we met in several cities around the country to talk about other things that we can do for establishing offices of violence prevention, for example, bringing in Cities United into many of those meetings, and making sure that we're moving in the same direction there. And then Mayor Paul Young out of Memphis, Tennessee, has started his own initiative called the Black Mayors Coalition on Crime, which I've participated in because we all know that most of our major cities in this country are being run by people of color, especially African Americans. And that's where that narrative comes from of, even though the data shows that crime is down, that people don't feel safe, which we know sometimes can be code words for other ways to express how Black people are leading these cities.
Well, you also were very successful as mayor. You got reelected to another term.
Oh, no, re-election's not till next March.
We've claimed it for you.
Claiming it now, but re-election's not till March.
Right. But
20 plus days left.
Let's talk about some of the things you learned. What things surprised you? From before you got in the seat to now that you have the seat, what lessons have you learned in between that time?
There's an old line from Hamilton that says, "Winning is easy, governing is harder." And I have found that I have oftentimes had to be more pragmatic and sometimes more conservative in how I look at things and how we approach different situations. For example, we have an income tax, a 1% income tax that's paid by anyone who works or lives in the city. And during the pandemic, we saw the nature of work change. Many people were working from home, or as we've gotten out of the pandemic, people have hybrid schedules, and so some of our county residents, because St. Louis is its own city, decided to sue the city because they felt like they should have received a refund. Now, full disclosure, I'm not responsible for collecting that tax. We have a separately elected collector of revenue who's responsible for the policies and procedures around collecting that tax. So even though the city was sued, it was technically the collector of revenue. But anyway, we knew that we lost that lawsuit back in May and had to prepare our budget very conservatively to make sure that we could absorb that hit in revenue. So, having to make those calls, being fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible is oftentimes seen as being a Scrooge, but we got to keep the lights on. We got to keep the trash getting picked up. We got to keep the potholes filled. And the only way to do that was to put a contingency in our budget so we will be able to absorb that hit. And then also looking down the road, I put together a advisory council or task force. So over the next 6 months, we're going to have frequent meetings to talk about what our revenue picture looks like on a long term, because this tax, the attacks on our income tax are not going away. So how can we set ourselves up fiscally to make sure that if by chance that tax does go away, then we're able to financially absorb the hit?
Wow. So as we look to close out this session, we know that there are many choices and as universities, sororities, fraternities, and that kind of thing.
Oh, here it comes.
So I think I got it right.
Here it comes.
You graduated from Hampton.
Yeah.
And you became a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So why Hampton and why Delta?
I chose Hampton because my father wouldn't let me go to Howard.
Edit that right there.
And there's an argument in my house right now because I have a little boy. He's not a little boy. He's a little man. He's 16 and he's a junior and he's starting to look at colleges and he is choosing Howard as his first choice. But it's for basketball reasons. I won't even lie. Our basketball team isn't the greatest right now. So, but my dad told me, well, take a look at Hampton. And if you don't like it, then we'll consider Howard. And the moment I stepped on the campus, I fell in love with the campus because anybody who knows Hampton University know it sits on the banks of the Chesapeake Bay. There are yachts going by all the time, and it's just a beautifully kept campus. And not throwing any shade on any other campus, but Hampton's a beautiful campus, and I just fell in love with it. And then after I graduated, I pledged Delta Sigma Theta in the St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter. And I pledged Delta because Deltas have always been on the front lines of social action. If you look at the history of our sorority, one of our first acts in social action was participating in the Women's Suffrage March in the early 1900s. And I just feel like that was the place for me. And, not throwing any shade on any of the other D9 organizations. But if you look at Delta and the things that we stand for, social action is at the center of everything that we do.
Well, I know the founders are very proud and smiling upon you as you've made them proud.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Jones, for joining us today for the podcast, Our Mayor's Breaking It Down. We have truly enjoyed the conversation. And we look forward to having you again on the show, okay?
Yes, look forward to it.
And thank you for your service to AAMA.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy every time I get together with my fellow mayors at AAMA. It's therapy. It's everything that I need.
It is.